When we were started, I remember I was blown away because I'd moved from West Virginia, where the educational level isn't what it is in the Triangle, and I couldn't believe the kind of people who showed up to be part of this church right from the start. We had people there who basically had developed and led us through a 5-year financial plan. They were laying it all out on overhead projectors out in the backyard and all this kind of stuff. From our very first, after our very first service, they had a choir and somebody playing this organ that Gordon had given them. They had a youth group designated. They had Sunday school established.
It's the first service that I remember well, and there were about 30 people. After the service, we pulled our chairs in a circle, and we sat around talking about what we were hoping for in a new church. We were like the Israelites in the wilderness. We had rolling bookcases that someone in the church had made that we put our used and donated prayer books and hymnals in, and they were rolled up to the front door of the gym. We also had a little bitty pretend organ that came and was rolled in. So we really were. Oh, and our altar was essentially an ironing board. Now, it was not exactly an ironing board. Somebody had built it, but it sure looked like an ironing board to me.
The deaf ministry incorporated a struggling part of the diocese, Epitha Church, Durham, which was for deaf folk, and they had lost their priest. And Rick Calloway, as I understand it, promised he would learn sign language. It's not easy. But we came and we had a paid interpreter. And there were classes. Larry Trowan was instrumental in some of those classes, and Emily got very good.
There were some deaf members that came to the congregation, and they would sit in the front row, and Kathy or another translator would sign language what was going on. And then Kathy offered to teach us sign language.
Reverend Diane Corlett, she was the diocesan deaf minister. So it was natural for them to be here. And as Emily said, a lot of the church members, because the sign language was used in the services, then attended classes and learned American Sign Language.
People around the congregation started learning certain signs, and it was kind of neat to look around and see hands moving as well as mouths. Diane was very fluent, could do both at the same time. And as a new baby deacon, my very first service, I was a deacon for Diane. And I said to her, now I'll turn the pages for you, because that's one of the tasks a deacon sometimes serves. And she looked at me and she said, just stay out of my way, because when she signed, it was all over the place.
You can't be a parish until you're financially self-supporting. So we finally got there. It had been a couple years longer than we anticipated with our original financial planning, but we loaded as many people who wanted to go to convention in Greensboro as wanted onto a bus, and we were there when we voted, and of course cheering and very excited. And also, then we participated in the rest of that day at the convention. But everybody was really excited. That was a major, major, major milestone.
It was farmland.
So what used to happen on on Sunday mornings when you gathered here. I'm sure that the farmland was filled with wonderful animals. So can you give us a story?
Indeed. Right back here on the other side of the parking lot, there was just one of those fences that would keep the cows from going anyplace, but it didn't barricade anything else. And on Sunday morning, the cows would line up along that fence. It was just one of those funny things that happened. Maybe they did it during the week too, I don't know. But on Sunday morning, the cows were there.
The other thing that I remember was that before we came here, we generally met in gymnasiums at schools, and there were always basketball hoops. So one of the first things Buildings and Grounds did when we got here was to put up a basketball, a
hoop, whatever.
A hoop.
Yeah.
And the church members used it. And
the kids
I think
sure
probably
did.
Neighborhood kids used it also.
During the week.
Yeah.
Right.
There were 2 groundbreakers.
That's possible, but the big one was right out there under that tree.
And why that tree?
It represented a lot for us because before we had this church, we would have services under the tree, and the children would have Sunday school class under the tree, and the children would play under the tree. That tree was that was a rock in the middle of us. It was great.
There's a little bit of history in addition to that, and that is that when they brought the bulldozers on campus to start the heavy work, Emily was concerned that they were going to harm that tree with the heavy equipment, and I think you even laid down on the ground.
I did. I flung myself in front of the tractors. It was a little bit dramatic, over dramatic, but it worked. We still have the tree.
When the nave was originally built, there was a plan for the organ. The organ was always part of the description of this is what we're raising money for. There was a place set aside for it. The architect put the HVAC system up there and took the space. And I've always said it's because he was Presbyterian, I'm joking there, but after we went off in private and screamed and yelled, we started working on trying to raise money for it because the building of the worship center, worship building, took all the money. Somebody had left us money and hadn't really specified, and Diane basically used a chunk of that for the organ because Diane liked music too, and it was sort of like all of a sudden Diane just got the vestry to agree we were going to have an organ. And we really didn't have all the money. She just did it. And so we were working kind of backwards on that one. And Andover is a very interesting company. Gordon and I later went through their factory, and they're a very interesting company because they make their own pipes, they make the case, they do everything. So they don't do a dozen a year, but everyone is pretty painstaking. And so it took a while for us to get us. We had the dedication of our wonderful Andover on November 16th, 2007. We couldn't afford everything that they thought was needed, but they built it so we could add 8 more sets of pipes. But then after Jason Pace became our organist and Stephanie Allen was here then as our priest, they set up a line called the Extraordinary Organ Fund. We didn't have a huge campaign. We just basically talked one-on-one with people, music lovers and organ lovers, and we raised the money, which Andover thought was amazing because they said everyone else they had ever worked with that they built in some extra capacity for never finished it. We were the first one to ever finish it. I think when you listen to someone who plays our organ well, I think you see God. I really do.
I was affected greatly in 1989 by the publication of Bill McKibben's book, The End of Nature. he was forecasting what we're experiencing now. I didn't have much time to spend on it, but I felt very guilty, like I had an albatross around my neck, that I had to do something. And so what happened was that, and Jane Vella and Reverend Diane Corlett got together and they applied for a grant from Meta-Nexus, which they received, and we had a 3-year program which was called Faith and Science Dialogue. And they asked Reverend David Buck and myself to co-lead that group, and I was the scientist and he was the theologian. And the 3rd year we decided that we would focus on the environment, and I finally got the albatross off from around my neck. but maybe I've been carrying it for the last 20 years because we have accomplished a great deal here. The first thing we did was we began supporting North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light, which was a program of the North Carolina Council of Churches, and their objective was to find solutions to climate change, hopeful solutions to climate change, and we worked very closely with them for many years. In 2018, we put solar panels on the education building, and a lot of that came out of the fact that in 2012, we had an energy savings analysis done by North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light, and they gave us a very nice report with detailed steps about how we could be more energy efficient and so forth.
We really like and care for each other, and I feel like I have this wonderful family, and I don't know everybody, probably don't know all my cousins either, but I mean, I think you can feel it when you have any kind of difficulty, a family death, somebody who's ill, all this stuff. We just sort of snap to and support, and you can feel it, and it is something that would make me I couldn't leave this church for anything. I couldn't.
This has been our source of strength and hope and mission and vision and everything. And we were just so thankful for the way things turned out.
Yeah.